Welcome to Unrestrained, the podcast series from CPI. Here you can enjoy conversations where professionals on all sides of crisis and behavior management relax and open up about themselves, their workplace, and their clients. You'll get the latest tips and trends from the best in the business, so tune in often to integrate their experiences with your own. Hello and welcome to Unrestrained, the CPI podcast series. This is your host, Terry Vitone, and today I have the pleasure of welcoming the president of CPI, Ms. Judith Schubert. Hello and welcome, Jude.
Hello. Nice to be here.
Thanks, Jude. Let me tell you a little bit about our guest. As president of the Crisis Prevention Institute, Judith Schubert advances initiatives to assure all efforts of the Institute contribute to the creation and maintenance of safe and respectful workplaces where the care and welfare of service users is the primary focus. Judith has worked with organizations in North America and the United Kingdom in structuring approaches for the implementation of meaningful training, policies, and procedures relating to behavior management, crisis prevention, and safe intervention strategies. Prior to joining CPI, Judith worked in social service, correctional and treatment settings, including community corrections, AODA treatment for offenders, institutional programming, residential services for juveniles, and victim advocacy. Judith received undergraduate degrees in social work and criminal justice and earned a master's degree in leadership development with a focus on organizational learning. All right, Judith, so then let's begin.
Looks like you said it all.
All right, well, not quite yet. Some of our listeners know you pretty well, but others might only see your signature on the instructor certificate they receive upon completion of training. Can you start by talking about how your journey at CPI over the past 20 years got you to where you are today?
Sure. Okay, 20 years ago, I joined CPI as a professional staff instructor, a trainer. We were really at an early growth stage at CPI, and I was a staff instructor. I trained Nonviolent Crisis Intervention, and it was an amazing experience and a great position with the company. I think I learned as much as I taught. Just being out with people in different professions. We were growing. I was moved into a director position for the training area. From the point CPI began certifying instructors, they always had established a direct line, really, to training specialists. So if someone wanted to call, they'd give a call and ask questions about their training. Also, there was documentation procedures in place. But when I came in as a training director, the idea was we have a lot more certified instructors. What other ways can we support them? And so in addition to just bringing on additional staff instructors, a lot of the work I did in those years had to do with creating and connecting resources for certified instructors to use in their training programs.
So how many years are you instructing before you become a director?
I was doing a little of both while I was a director because we were growing, and there was a lot of need for the program. So I think I was probably a full-time staff instructor for 3 years, maybe. I trained both the core program, and we had one advanced training program then, and I focused on that. But I still continued to train in the early years I was a director.
And how many professional instructors were there at that time when you became director? What year is this about?
Let's see, I think there was probably about 5 of us as staff instructors, and I think in that first year, maybe 1997, I probably brought on another 10. I mean, there was just a great need, and a lot of things were going on. Like I said, we had this commitment to continually learn from certified instructors. So from the time I was a trainer to even being in the office and answering the calls, the learning, just about how is the program working, what challenges are people having, what's happening in the classroom when they train staff, how are the interventions we teach them actually playing out in these different settings. So in learning all that, we recognized we want to connect some of that learning to other certified instructors. So today we do that in a lot of ways on our instructor website and through Yammer community. Now I just sound like a pioneer here saying, but back in the old
Well,
days.
well, I mean, truly, but I mean, at that time that you made director, the total employee count of CPI is?
Oh, I would say under 25.
Wow, so that is the,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
sort of the frontier, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't know, I've kind of, things happen really quickly for a while there. When I was in the role of director, in addition to just looking for resources and connecting these resources with certified instructors, there was a lot happening nationwide and actually throughout North America in just gauging the impact of behavioral interventions. CPI always had standards from the point in 1987, before my time here, that they established the instructor certification program. There was always standards that said, here's a framework. We want you to customize. We know you have experience that we don't have in putting these things to use, but these are standards around how the training should be facilitated. We always had documentation procedures, validation procedures, and monitored our training. In the late 90s, there was a lot going on. There were issues in the headlines. There was actually some major critical events that happened and were in the spotlight around people being hurt or dying in restraint. And so we were part of that early dialogue. So in addition to learning from certified instructors, I was learning from, advocacy groups, from regulators, from families, people that had individuals in care or in schools that, were challenged in a variety of ways and, exhibited challenging behavior. And sometimes the responses were causing more problems than being the solution, and by very well-meaning staff.
Okay.
A lot of that had to do with what was in place for training, and I think our standards and our expectations were in place before there was actually some national or international regulations and standards around the issues of behavior management and restraint training, and that was a huge an important time.
Are you aware at that point that CPI is ahead of the trend and is actually setting standards that are not in place in a greater outside venue?
We were aware, in some ways, because we worked with organizations like Child Welfare League of America and some other professional organizations that were just striving to establish some best practice guidance around the issue of managing behaviors with kids. But we were also very much aware there was a huge article in the Hartford Courant, and really put a lot of restraint deaths in the headlines. And the national government GAO office put some things in place to say, no, we need to establish standards and regulations and expectations for organizations that are working with our most vulnerable populations. And so we got involved with that. And so that was an important time. And in some of that, I guess that's part of why people turn to us for training. And I think the structure of our training was easy to implement, and people appreciated that. They appreciated having the support and certified instructors versus having to hire someone to come in and do training all the time for a variety of staff. We were having more people coming into our training programs from other countries. We had been training throughout Canada and throughout the United States. People were coming over from England and Ireland, implementing the program in their facilities. So I went over to the UK and worked to establish our first office and presence there. So some of these same things that I experienced in setting up some of our resources and standards here at our headquarter office, I got to do again. So when you work for a growing company, sometimes I had to bring some of our other GPIs, our other staff instructors up, to help with support. We established a research and development area. I think the type of director I was changed, and I think my title changed. I probably had several titles just based on some things that we were expanding on. We evolved research and development. I got very involved in the development and design of some additional resources, advanced training programs. Like I said, we had one. So just really looking and learning from what are the issues impacting certified instructors, expanding kind of that development area, making sure that we stayed on top of research to see where legislation was emerging, where regulations and what best practice was. So, those were all part of that. But I kind of see that all as, and still to this day, what I do is around just the direction really of our training and our quality standards and what we research, what we pay attention to, what we develop, and I guess probably most importantly, the support for certified instructors. So everything has really been in those areas.
Okay. Well, that brings us up to, so you've described your journey here at CPI and the way that the business of CPI has evolved and some of the changes that have happened. So let's move to the most recent evolution, and those are the enhancements to the Nonviolent Crisis Intervention. Can you preface how the origin of that?
There's a few things intersecting over the last, I'd say, 5 years. I mentioned research. Our research team was continually looking at what is happening, what are the issues that relate to the management of challenging behavior and the variety of locations we were in, regulations and best practice standards as well as legislation. And I think one of the things that continually spoke very loudly to us was, in a very good way and a very positive thing, was more professional regulations and legislative guidance throughout North America, was really setting expectations for organizations that if your staff are responding to these issues and have responsibilities to put their hands on someone because they are presenting risks, you need to train your staff. And as we started to look at the trends in that, the trends were, you need to train your staff yearly. So that was one thing going on we were very aware of, and it was, we were doing a lot of work around trying to help certified instructors implement a training process and not just see training as a one and done kind of thing. Another thing that was going on at the same time is we had really grown in Europe as well, and we joined with another company in England, and they had a program that they taught called MAPA, Management of Actual and Potential Aggression. And in England, we merged nonviolent crisis intervention with that MAPA program.
I see.
We decided in 2013, we had an instructor conference focused on customizing training, and we decided we had this integrated program over in England. Let's show it to some of our certified instructors who come to conference. So in 2013, we showed that program, that merged program, and it was like no other response we had when we rolled out an advanced program.
How was it different?
It was different in, when we have an advanced course, our certified instructors look at a piece of something and say, I'm going to train this particular team in this piece, or I'm going to use this reference point and infiltrate into my training. And it was different because people were saying, I want to train this version, they were calling it, to everyone. It had the best parts of nonviolent crisis intervention. We really used NCI as the base, and we folded in some of the information from the MAPA program and the skills from the MAPA program. So it was just a different response. So we kind of took it on the road a little bit in 2013 and 2014, and I went to all those programs where we taught that we called it Nonviolent Crisis Intervention MAPA Edition.
Now, in your head, is it working? Are you thinking, this has got to happen, this has got to become part of our core nonviolent crisis intervention? Is this idea always, does it start to grow as you see the reaction, or is it lurking in the background all the while?
Yeah, I guess it started to grow as I went out to the programs, as we taught it. I was also staying in touch with our certified instructors in England and Ireland, who now were experiencing this merged program. So I was learning from them and some of the value points they saw. Being there with those certified instructors, and they were all pretty much saying the same thing. I think we should teach this in this manner to our staff. And another thing they were saying is, I'd like to use this for some staff I haven't trained yet. And that was about, well, some of the assessment, some of the behavioral assessment, risk assessment pieces are going to help some staff I haven't trained yet. And also, there's some added physical interventions that I think, because of the range of restrictiveness, some of our staff that haven't trained previously would benefit from. So that was going on. So there's kind of our research awareness about what was being expected.
So rather than it being an advanced technique or learning, it really proved to be fundamental almost.
Yeah, that's a good word to, people were seeing it as, this is nonviolent crisis intervention. In fact, it has some new perspectives, and that's how I began to actually refer to it as, through learning from certified instructors. It is nonviolent crisis intervention, but there's some perspectives that we that really magnify the values of the program and give staff some additional tools in different units. So it is in a different program.
Okay.
So that was important, and I guess the third thing that was going on at the same time was we were getting out in and seeing some programs taught by certified instructors, and your listeners know, if they're certified instructors, we have a quality and validation department where we document the training that they facilitate. And I think a trend we were seeing was, although there were more complex circumstances people were dealing with, certified instructors training programs, their hours were shorter. So, personally, I got out and saw some of those programs, really, really good certified instructors. But if I were to look at 5 certified instructors training an 8-hour training program, they weren't all the same. Either someone's going to go really quickly through it, or they're going to leave different parts out. Some of our concerns were people were leaving parts out that could have been preventative in nature.
I see.
And having to spend some more of that shorter period of time on physical interventions.
So you were saying, in a way, this is not just an a la carte option that might supplant another portion of the coursework.
Yeah. And we really had to think through and kind of all of those factors. And so our director team and our executive leadership team here at CPI kind of launched a program enhancement process. And really looked at enhancing what it is we do and evaluating those kind of 3 important areas that were kind of colliding there.
It's interesting, though, if I may, just to hear that it was the reaction of certified instructors saying, this, I'd like to teach this part of the course, never mind advanced, to turn on a light bulb and say, this is where the real feedback is coming from, where you had the confidence to go forward, was from that take on their enthusiasm.
Yeah. In some ways, and we were letting them do that. People that went through the program as an advanced option, some of them were just able to take a piece from it. Others were actually saying, could I use this workbook now? And they were able to do that. But they went back to organizations where there was 10 other instructors that didn't have the training. So that became, sort of, how do we all do this together? Can you come train the rest of the staff? So we took, significant amount of time and evaluated an enhancement.
Can you talk about, let me ask you a question about that. Now, you've got these new additions from MAPPA. Can you talk about the theory behind the instructional design, where you said, okay, this is going to be added as an enhancement to NCI?
Nonviolent crisis intervention has never been kind of static, like that's all we have. We since I've been here, and I think since CPI began, has always had additional resources, and we've really counted on certified instructors to use those resources and enhance the relevance of the program. But they were always optional. And this was the first time really that we said, well, let's look at having this program be nonviolent crisis intervention. And let's give people more. So I guess if I were to give you a nutshell answer, our sort of the theory behind the way we design programs has to do more with a cognitive learning theory, preventing cognitive load, so it leaves with someone and they could use it when they get to work. We don't pretend that certified instructors are able to change people's behavior in a 12-hour training program. This stuff is taught in semester and degree programs. So,
Right.
Here we are. What we've always tried to do is set a foundation, put some models in place, have some ways that people could practice new skills in the classroom. But where it really becomes important is when they leave the classroom, and that training transfer is, where the meaning making takes place.
Well, let me cut to the chase on that then.
Am I talking too much?
Not at all. How will here it is. How are these enhancements to NCI going to make our instructors more effective when they leave the classroom?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think they'll really appreciate that the nonviolent crisis intervention training that they have come to know and love and train their staff in is there. And what they'll see is there's some different perspectives. And there are a few different models that will help make it more relevant, perhaps, or again, it's a perspective thing. They'll have some different ways to make points to weave the values of our program through the entire course. They'll have a model that looks at decision making, for instance.
Okay, can we get into that? So you have the instructor, he or she teaches the participant goes out, trains somebody, and then somebody who has been trained in NCI sees somebody who is potentially going to act out. What does the enhancement bring them that they may not have had before?
Well, hopefully, we've always had models in the program. If you think of the crisis development model, what we hope happens is the person trained, the staff member trained, it has their thinking organized when they leave the training. And they could see a behavior and they could say, oh, that person is in this first level, they're, more anxious, I have to be supportive. And oh, that person, is presenting a risk now and I have to call the team and have respond to the safety issues. They've had that, they'll have more of that. So I think that's what's going to help the staff. And I think there'll be more team members that the certified instructors will see, I need to bring in some additional staff, team members, because some of the added pieces will really be beneficial to them. In making decisions, in kind of taking a look at risk behaviors in ways that consider, person-centered approaches for behavior, recognizing what has meaning for the individual. And I think that will trickle down through staff confidence. I think they'll have additional confidence. We've added some physical interventions to manage risk behavior that have somewhat of continuum really of restrictiveness. And people are finding that that's very useful. Some of the service users, clients, students that people work with, their risk behavior may be such that they aren't going to use a physical intervention that we've taught them thus far.
Do you think it's accurate to say that we, in redefining acting out into risk behavior, that we see risk behavior as more of a continuum than
Sure.
we did previously, and that gives a person responding to crisis greater latitude to make a decision?
Yeah, definitely. And I think what becomes important, and it's also part of our instructional design continuously, is we never want to script a staff member. We never want to say, here, when this happens, do this. We'd love to be able to, but what happens is that staff member will do that, with that person that day, and it might turn out very, very well. They could do the same exact thing, say the same exact words, intervene in the same exact way the next day with the same person, and have a different outcome. And that's just with the same person. Just imagine the number of people that staff deal with. So we never want to kind of convey that there's this script. And I think with the enhancements, we really wanted to magnify the significance of help staff make better decisions, help them problem solve using the same frameworks. So when they sit down and talk about it, they're using the same language. They're saying, this is what I saw in that risk behavior. This is why I intervened in the way I did or didn't intervene. I didn't see the risk as so great that a physical intervention was necessary, so I managed it in this way. And I think those discussions and being able to, I don't want to say defend because it sometimes sounds negative, but really to justify, to explain a decision they make. I think that's just huge for staff members' confidence to be able to say, I did this because of these reasons, and this is what I saw, and I think that's going to help. And trickling down to the students in the classroom or the individuals in care, they'll see that consistency, and they'll see that this isn't about a power struggle where a staff member is angry at me. Mm-hmm. This is about my behavior, and I'm learning about it afterwards, and the person that had to manage that still cares about me.
Right.
So,
well, I think if you have a more precise understanding and more confidence and more patience, which these enhancements would provide an instructor, hopefully, that is a palpable feeling in the person that you're serving, I would think.
Yeah, it's got to be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know when someone has their own anxiety.
Right.
Mm-hmm. if you go to a hospital today because you're bringing in a loved one, and a staff member comes out to, ask if they can help you, if they're afraid,
Right.
you're afraid. You're the service user, right? You're afraid. You feel that sense, and it's almost like you want to ask, get me someone else, right? There is this sense of, it almost increases our anxiety when we know that person that's saying, here, I'm going to help your sister. If I don't get that sense when I'm in that state of anxiety, I'm going to escalate. I'm going to actually not trust that intervention and not be confident in what's going to happen next. So I think that staff members having that patience that you mentioned, having that ability to look at things through a lens that helps them to filter, and it isn't about the person that just kicked someone's behavior as much as it's about what do I need to have happen next? How do I remedy this? Where's the solution? So, I think it's going to help in all of those ways.
So the changes happening at CPI into Nonviolent Crisis Intervention include an upgrade to the instructor certification process, as well as quality standards and training materials. And what does it all mean for CIs? Can you Can you talk about that? I know there's a lot of different parts to that question, but
Yeah.
let's begin with the upgrade to the certification process.
Okay, so certified instructors, what does it mean to them? It means we have more and we're giving them more.
Okay.
So I think that's the bottom line is we have more that's going to be applicable pretty much across the board to everybody. That we feel strongly that anyone that's responding, not preventing, I guess, responding or managing behaviors, there's information here that they'll need. So we have more. We actually have built out something in each of the units of nonviolent crisis intervention. There's new components to it. They actually have 14 hours of a curriculum. But what they can expect, another thing I think the certified instructors will appreciate is there's an added flexibility in how they use that.
Okay.
Whether they're training staff that need, really a lot more of training and practice in setting limits and responding to someone who is challenging. There's some new components there, so they might stress that with those groups. The new materials, for instance, will have perforated pages that allow them to, all right, I'm going to teach this group of staff some of these physical responses to risk behavior, but not others. So they'll have some flexibility there.
I see.
So while we are giving them more, we're also giving them some more flexibility.
How about days 3 and 4? What's going on with those?
Okay, so we have, 30,000 certified instructors that are teaching nonviolent crisis intervention. So over the next several years, when they return for their renewal program, we want them to really come through the whole program again. And on days 3 and 4, so they'll see the 2 days of content. They'll see the full 14 hours of content that they now have access to. And on day 3 and on the second 2 days, then through an instructor process, we're going to go through what's new, where's the common threads from previous training, how to transition from what they have been training staff to what they might want to train staff now. And we really want to have that time with them. And then we want to see them take this on board. And just like their first certification, we want to see them teach some of it. It's very important to us that if we're teaching these skills, and we're teaching new physical skills, that we see certified instructors at a level of proficiency that gives us the confidence that they can go back and teach that. So certified instructors, I sent a letter to everyone, and they're aware of this. The next time they come through renewal, we need to see them for that full program. It was interesting, part of our enhancement initiative through that time we were looking at all these factors and making this determination. I had several calls with our meritorious instructors, and these are instructors that have been around a while, have trained a lot of hours. And one of the things that came up when I was telling them about what we're doing, several of them said, I have not gone through the core nonviolent crisis intervention program in 7 or 8 years.
Right.
And that struck them, it struck me.
That's some drift.
Yeah. I mean, going through renewal every 4 years, they might have gone through an advanced course. A lot of these meritorious instructors have been through, the autism advanced course or the trauma-informed care program. But they haven't returned to the full NCI program. Which explains some of the drift that we had been seeing. Seeing certified instructors teach, maybe incorporating a little bit from an advanced course they attended or something they studied on their own. We saw some training drift. So having people see those 4 days and get realigned and recalibrated and re-energized, I think they'll get pretty excited about going back and doing the same and teaching their staff. So.
What else in the certification process has changed?
The instructors, like I said, will have some additional flexibility. So we've asked instructors to train 18 hours. We're now asking instructors to document with us 2 training events that they facilitate. And because they'll have some flexibility in how they facilitate it, we're putting that responsibility with them. With that extra responsibility comes some, added responsibility for their own proficiency. So where we have been seeing people, certified instructors, every 4 years, we want to see them every 2 years. Previously, we've had them take an online exam every 2 years. We're going to have them come back into a training program where we can work with them, see what they're using in the program, check their proficiency. They're training staff every year.
Right.
So waiting to see them for 4 years didn't make sense anymore. Instead of taking an online exam, we actually will have a lot more resources for them that they can utilize on demand, use when they feel they need a refresher or a tune-up. So there'll be a lot more that they can do. But those are some of the shifts in how we're going to be giving them more content, more flexibility, but also more responsibilities for assuring that they're proficient in using all we're giving them.
Hopefully that added proficiency will provide ROI, that being retraining will make their interventions more effective and have less acting out incidents that can be so expensive for their organizations.
We'll be working with them on transition plans for that. But they will see a different kind of return, because the staff that come into training, I think, are going to have a lot of aha moments. And I think they're going to see staff responding with more confidence and, I guess, less stressed.
I was thinking just that any time an environment needs to be restrictive, it's going to cost money.
Right.
And any at least restrictive environment probably is going to be more economical as well. That's right. That's not proven. It's just something I have a gut feeling for, but it seems to make sense.
Right. And I think what happens then is I think the word culture, organization culture, is kind of overused, but you asked before about how this trickles down, really.
Right.
I think that culture, that sense of the values that are leading everything that organization is doing, it will be felt by everyone there, whether they went through training or not, whether they're a parent coming in to pick up their student, or an advocate coming in to work with someone in a residential facility, a patient or a family member bringing someone into a hospital emergency room. They're going to feel these things. And you're right. I think you do have a sense when something has restrictiveness, and almost, there's a natural instinct to want to fight against that.
Right.
I think when people have confidence and can listen effectively and be non-judgmental and just saying, here's some choices you can make. And with our program, having those different tools to rely on, even after an incident, to go back to your participant workbook and look and go, oh yeah, that's right, we learned something in this, latest nonviolent crisis intervention, that gives us an evaluation tool for the skills we used. And so it's kind of like there's some reflective models. I think that lends itself very well to continuous improvement. Well said. So I think there will be that change, and it has to happen at a lot of different levels. I mean, we could do our part at CPI. I think our certified instructors know we're here. Right. We're on the phone 300, 400 calls a week with them. I think they know that we're here. We have 35 staff instructors. We have a whole training team and quality and validation team that's there for them. So we're doing our part. We're keeping on time. We have a research and development unit.
We also have an instructor conference coming up in New Orleans this July 19th through the 24th. Could you talk about the opportunities available for training and renewal in New Orleans?
Yes. Very excited about the conference in New Orleans. It will be the launch of Nonviolent Crisis Intervention Enhanced Training. From there on out, it's just nonviolent crisis intervention. And at conference, we have a whole week, so we're gonna train people in the 2-day, the full content. We're gonna have a day that really dives into the facilitation elements. We're gonna have all of our directors will be there to do some transition planning with certified instructors at conference, to kind of talk through, so how are you gonna use this, how are you gonna roll it out, you gonna do anything differently? And then through the conference program and the latter 2 days, there'll be a lot of new presentations around topics that just really are very relevant in today's world for the certified instructors, things they deal with all the time. So it's going to be a great week.
For instance, what would a couple of those be? Put you on the spot.
This is the first time we've done this, but this conference, we're going to have an education track. There are so many different issues that are impacting schools. A lot of our certified instructors are in schools. Many of them are training certain groups of staff, but not general ed classroom staff, or might not be training with their SROs or security teams. So we have an education track, and we have everything from extreme emergencies and responding to extreme situations in schools, to just doing professional development for staff in shorter spurts of time. So we have a schools track. We have other workshops on resilience. We have the president of an organization that just does training on resilience that's going to be there and working with our people at conference.
You have some entertainment as well, I understand.
We do. We have, New Orleans is a city of music, and I guess the queen of the music scene and the soul of New Orleans will be providing some entertainment, as well as a little bit about her story through Hurricane Katrina, which is a huge crisis that we all can learn from. So we're excited to have some entertainment. We'll have a lot of different fun events actually going on at conference.
That's great. That's great. And people, I don't know if it was mentioned, Irma Thomas is the singer's and the songwriter's name, and indeed it's amazing in New Orleans you have quote unquote local talent, and it happens to be Irma Thomas. So
that's right. Did I not mention her name? Yep, that's an important name.
Well,
to remember.
maybe we'll edit that out and let people we'll use that as a teaser.
Yeah,
we could do that.
All right, everyone, Google Irma Thomas and learn a little bit about her.
I think, Jude, is there anything more about the enhancements or about NCI or the conference, or something that you'd like to tell our listeners? Something burning that you say, well, they got to know this, and you didn't ask me.
I guess our certified instructors, I just want them to be confident, as I hope they have been, that we're committed to continuing to learn as much as we teach. We're continuing our commitment, to all the different pieces that really are differentiators, and they know that. A lot of our certified instructors have had to participate in all sorts of training, and they understand that for CPI, it really just starts with the training, and they need to know that continues, and the enhancement, initiative continues, from everything that'll be available to them online, to some apps we're creating for them, to simplifying a process that helps them to train staff in different ways throughout a training process, in short ways and in comprehensive ways. So I guess it's just important that they know we're still committed to all that. That's something I think that's unmatched anywhere, in any kind of workplace training that we know about. So they need to know that and count on that from us.
So now, coming in as a staff instructor in 1997, rising to the position of president, what's next for you, do you think?
Well, I told you I was in England, so maybe Queen.
Well, okay. Maybe you can meet her, or John might be able to introduce you to her.
Right. It doesn't really matter what title I've had at CPI. it's all really been this evolution where we could create things and we could train, but that learning and keeping people safe and helping them balance that responsibility and that commitment to providing care with keeping people safe. So no matter what title I've had, that's always kind of been my commitment here, and I don't really know that there would ever be any other place that my values and my strengths and skills and what I'm continually studying will be effective.
I see.
Other than doing these things with our certified instructors,
So sometimes at the end of interviews like this, there's like a question about who'd you have dinner with, blah, blah, blah. I had one here about where would you go if you had a time machine, but it seems like you just answered that question. Yes. Say that louder.
I guess I did.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. My guest today has been Judith Schubert, the president of the Crisis Prevention Institute here in Milwaukee. Thank you, Judith.
Oh, thank you, Terry. This was really enjoyable. I hope I didn't ramble on too much.
Not at all. Thank you for joining us today on Unrestrained. Tune in again soon for another interview.